morning, everyone. Welcome to Washoe County Library System's Art Town Mondays with the Nevada Historical Society. Today's topic is Nevada's First Senator by Lorraine Petersen. Again, welcome and thank you for joining us today. A huge shout out to the Nevada Historical Society for converting this in-person event to a virtual event. We appreciate their commitment to supporting our community with educational events like these. To learn more about Nevada Historical Society, please visit their website at www.nvhistoricalsociety.org. And now I'd like to introduce Linda Burke, Lorraine Petersen, with the Nevada Historical Society. Welcome so much, and we're so happy that you're here today.
Thank you very much, Judy, and thank you. Hello, I am Linda Burke, and I am a docent volunteer at the Nevada Historical Society, where I've led school tours and also have served on the board of the Docent Council. Welcome to this series of history talks brought to you by the Nevada Historical Society and the Washoe County Library System. Today it is my pleasure to introduce you to Lorraine Petersen, a fellow docent and famed storyteller and tour guide at our museum and gallery. Lorraine is a retired employee, development manager and project leader for Granite Construction Incorporated in California, and a longtime student and lover of history. An artifact at the Nevada Historical Society, where Lorraine has given tours and worked in the American Gaming Archives and in hospitality. An artifact at the Nevada Historical Society was the inspiration for this talk. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a real treat today. I give you Lorraine Petersen and Nevada's first Senator, William Morris Stewart.
Thank you, Linda. Hello, my name is Lorraine, and I really like history. I'm a volunteer at 2 museums in the Reno-Sparks area. A college intern at the Nevada Historical Society told me that she is studying history because she has always liked listening to stories. And now she's telling stories. And to her, that's what history is, a lot of good stories. You've joined me today to hear the story of William Morris Stewart, the story of Nevada's first senator. I found a quote. I promise not to read every slide I show you, but I'd like to read this quote to you. And in the end, it's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in your years. And William Morris Stewart knew how to live. Every story has a beginning. And for me, the beginning of studying the William Morris Stewart, is I asked a curator at the museum to give me an idea for an interesting topic to start studying. He led me into the galleries and asked me these 2 questions. What do you know about this sign, this man? And I knew nothing about this sign. I had walked by it many times before and never asked myself that. And I knew nothing about the man. But in 1908, a young woman knew that William Morris Stewart was somebody that all of us should know something about. And that woman is Jeanne Elizabeth Wier. You've heard her story many times. She gave Nevada 2 wonderful gifts. She started the Nevada Historical Society in 1904. She filled it with relics, manuscripts, and photographs. The second gift she gave us, she kept a diary. And in a couple of seconds, I'm going to show you excerpts from her diary. Jeanne Wier, every time she gets a break from her classes and it's called the University of Nevada in 1906, she is going to be traveling the state looking for more relics, more material for the museum. In 1908, she has 2 purposes. She's going to travel down to Las Vegas, and she's going to meet with Helen Stewart. Within 1 hour of meeting with Helen Stewart agrees to become the Southern Nevada head of the Nevada Historical Society branch. Jeanne Wier can be very persuasive. The other goal of her 1908 trip is on her way back to Reno, she wants to stop in Bullfrog, Nevada. It's by Rhyolite. And she wants to see Senator Stewart's wonderful new office and home that he has built there for his family. Apparently it's an oasis in that mountain desert area. So here is what Jeanne Wier says in 1908. Bullfrog, Nevada, August 16th, 1908. The greatest event of the morning was the inspection of Senator Stewart's office and desert home. If the society can acquire the papers and manuscripts left here by him, this treasure will alone repay me for the hardships of this summer trip to the South. It's in all the papers that Senator Stewart and his family are going to move back to Washington, D.C. He has a lot of business ventures there and he needs to be close by those businesses. Right away, within days, Jeanne Wier writes to Senator Stewart, and he is in Carson City celebrating his 83rd birthday. And by return mail, she gets Senator Stewart's reply. I'd be honored to have the Nevada Historical Society have anything in my office in Bullfrog. The only requirement is that you're going to have to arrange to pack everything up and ship it to Reno. Jeanne Wier is absolutely ecstatic about this event. Notice the next entry doesn't happen until October 19th, because remember, Jeanne Wier is a teacher, so she has to go back and teach school at the university. October 19th, what a treasure we have obtained here. I can scarcely believe it is really ours. Jeanne Wier never meant her diary to be published. She's writing for herself, how she feels at the end of each of her days. It takes her several days to arrange to have everything packed up. There are over 500 volumes left in Senator Stewart's office. On October 23rd, she writes, with my own hands, I knocked from the porch roof of his law office the sign. And this is where it was. The wagon is pulled up to his office. That's William Morris Stewart standing. The bearded gentleman standing there is William Morris Stewart. She climbs up on top of the wooden crates and pulls down the sign. Basically, she says, I'm sure he meant the sign too. I need to stop here for a second because I found something very interesting. When Jeanne Wier saw how much was left in his office, she realized that the new museum didn't have a big budget. And she had to now get everything to Reno. From Bullfrog, Nevada, it's going to take 4 different trains. The boxes are going to be handled 4 different times to get to Reno, Nevada. We have a wonderful collection in our home of train books, so we figured it all out. That's going to cost the society, the Nevada Historical Society, a lot of money. So Jeanne Wier, in August, after she gets Stewart's reply, she talks to Wells Fargo. She talks to all of the heads of the train companies that are involved. And she continues to talk to more train companies. She gets an agreement, she says, from almost all of them, to allow her to ride free on any of her exploration trips around Nevada. Within the state of Nevada, on her collection trips, she can ride free. And they will allow anything heading towards Reno for the Nevada Historical Society to travel free on freight. They don't guarantee priority freight, but it's free. And that is amazing. That's what I love about studying history. You meet people that come up with a problem and figure out how to solve it. So, right, and later on in her diary, she's going to worry about where the boxes are because they just trickle in one by one, but all of them arrive at the museum, and that sign is at the museum for you to come and visit someday. Jeanne Wier already knew how important William Stewart was to Nevada, to the Western states, and to America. So let's get a brief overview of William Morris Stewart. His lifespan is 1825 to 1904, 84 years. He's Nevada's senator for 5 terms. He's credited with authoring the 1872 National Mining Law. This is law that will govern the mining in Alaska. It will be adapted to the laws of the Spanish laws working in mining in the Philippines. He introduces it within the first couple of his first term in Washington. He needs to stay in Washington to make sure that it doesn't get changed and deleted and added to until it finally becomes law in 1872. I hope you realize I get excited about history. He authors the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution in 1870. I always thought that this was the right for us all to vote. We know women didn't get the right to vote, but reality, it was a law that had to happen at the time it happened. It was part of the Reconstruction after the Civil War. It was a law that was going to have many laws to finally give everybody the vote. Basically, this amendment, 15th Amendment, outlaws the discrimination of any citizen, no matter what their race, color, or condition of previous servitude. So somebody couldn't stop somebody because of race, their color, or if they were a slave before they became a citizen. Bill Stewart, the wording on the 15th Amendment, I'm still trying to get that under control. But Bill Stewart will be a champion of water projects throughout the Western states, just not only Nevada. He knows that water is what will keep people in Nevada growing crops, having cattle and sheep, the mining industry. So water is very important to William Stewart's agenda. He's a supporter of education. The second building on the UNR campus is going to be called Stewart Hall in his name. The college goes first to Elko, but behind the scene, William Morris Stewart is working to get it to Reno. He asks all to call him Bill. And from this point forward, I'm going to call him Bill too. The miners, the people in the street, really felt that Bill understood their problems and they could talk to him. So let's start Bill's story. I need you to imagine a child with piercing blue eyes, hair so blonde that it's white. He's born in 1825. Notice that I put an asterisk on the first bullet by born. Bill he confuses the issue because he sometimes uses 1827 and other times he uses 1825. Of all the books that I've read, and ones that I really enjoy, they use the date 1825, so I'm going with that date. Bill's the oldest of 7. His family is just eking out a living on land that they lose. They moved to the New West. Ohio was new in the 1820s. Bill is 7 years old when they moved to Ohio. He has a coon dog. He lends out his coon dog. This goes on for about 3 years for a share of the pelts so that he can buy shoes for himself and his brothers and sisters. It's Ohio. They only go to school in the winter months, and and they need shoes. When he's 13 years old, his father says no more schooling, and Bill makes a plan. He's 16, new image of Bill. He's 6'2" already. He's very thin, but strong, because he works outdoors in the fields all the time. And he wants an education. One of his son-in-laws is going to write that Bill was born with the desire of education. So He's left home. He's working for a room and board, and he's studying. His mentors are businessmen and professionals that will lend him their books in their libraries. One of his mentors says, "You need to apply for Yale." He gets in because his math scores are extremely high. Bill will pay back all of the loans to his mentors. And throughout his lifetime, he's going to help a lot of young men and women reach their educational goals. He's also helping his sister go to school too. Second year at Yale, Bill gets gold fever. He can't get a ship out. Bill's decided to go to try his luck in the gold country. The ships, he finally gets a place on the ship, and that ship almost goes down off the coast of the Carolinas. He gets to the isthmus and takes a dugout part way, and then he walks most of the way to Panama City. Bill he's done something really smart though before he left the East Coast. He bought a ticket for a ship leaving Panama City for San Francisco. His job is to just make sure he gets there before that ship leaves. He does reach his ship in time. Spring of 1850, Bill is in San Francisco. He has no money. He has no mentors. He needs to earn $30 to take a boat to Sacramento. Already Bill is watching what the miners in San Francisco, they're losing bags and bags of gold. And Bill is already starting to write notes about how big are their claims? Who's watching their claims while they're out losing their money? And just how much gold is there up in the Sierras? Bill earns his $30. He heads to Sacramento. Bill is already very sick from malaria fever. Sacramento is not a place to be at this time. There are floods happening in Sacramento. There are vigilante groups working in Sacramento. There are miners fighting miners. It's not a safe place to be. Bill convinces a driver of a supply wagon heading for Marysville, California, to give him a ride. The driver leaves him by a little stream at Deer Creek Diggings. We now call that Nevada City, California. He leaves Bill with a cup and a little crust of bread. And Bill will write in his autobiography, I can remember miners walking by saying, "Not dead yet." And he also writes, "It's a good thing I didn't have any money for a doctor and medicine because all that died." Bill gets well. He starts mining and he finds gold right away. He calls his mine Eureka, but he sees all the abandoned mining works around him, so he knows he has to do other things. Bill is not afraid of hard work. He logs, he raises hogs and chickens, anything he can sell fast to get money for more mining. And he studies the law. We're going to stay on this slide for a while. In 1852, Bill passes the bar. California, he's a lawyer. Within days, he's appointed district attorney of Nevada County. That's where Nevada City is located. And he has a trial. His opponent, lawyer on that trial, is a very experienced lawyer from the state of Illinois. And Bill knows he's out of his depth. He picks a fight with this lawyer, and the judge sends Bill to jail. The sheriff is Bill's friend and brings Bill law books. Bill studies all night long. The next day, he makes some points for his client. He picks another fight. He spends another night in jail. This goes on for 3 days. Finally, the other lawyer understands what's happening and doesn't provoke Bill anymore. Bill wins that case. He's going to go on to win many cases. He In 1854, Governor Bigler of California, we know that name because Lake Tahoe was once called Bigler Lake. Governor Bigler has met Bill. He likes Bill, and he appoints Bill Attorney General for the state of California. It's a temporary position, 6 months to a year. The Attorney General for California wants to go back east and find a bride, and Bill fills in for him. Bill has also started a law office in San Francisco, and in 1854, Bill is going to meet the love of his life, Anne Elizabeth Foote. This is a drawing of Anne on her 21st birthday. Anne and her mother and the 5 Foote children have just come through the isthmus, and they have lots of adventures to tell. They all arrive in good health. Anne is the daughter of Henry Foote, former governor and U.S. Senator of Mississippi. He is Bill's law partner in San Francisco. All of the girls and the boys in the Foote family are all trained in the classics. Anne speaks 5 languages already. For their 47 years together, Bill will call her Annie. They are married June of 1855. They met in November 1854. Bill has a lot of cases to try in Nevada City and in other places, mining areas, and he wants to get Annie settled in their new home in Nevada City. On their wedding day, Annie will further confirm that she's married a very honorable man and a very loyal friend. Bill has co-signed for a friend's business. That business failed. And on their wedding day, the collection people come to the Foote residence, and Bill turns over the $5,000 that he has saved to finish their home in Nevada City. Bill is he has a lot of law cases to win. And Annie's only going to have to wait a year to move into her beautiful replica to the replica of her Mississippi childhood home. I took this picture. I cut out the addition that somebody added in the 1930s. It's on a hill in Nevada City. It's called Piety Hill. It's built away from any of the fires that happened in Nevada City. It still stands today. One of the authors that I read, Ruth Herman, owned this house while she was doing the research on the Stewarts. 2 friends that I know from the history groups in Reno, each of them gave me a hardbound copy of Ruth Herman's book. I keep one by my nightstand and the other one's in the docent library for other docents to read. The address now is 416 Zion Street, and the E. Clampus Vitus group, a group that really helps preserve history in the West, has put a plaque on it, but I couldn't get the picture of the plaque because then I'd catch the addition to the house too. Within a month after moving in, their first daughter is born, Bessie. You're going to see a pattern here. Every 2 years, Bill is going to be moving Annie and his family to a new adventure, a new house. In 1858, the mining is very, it's intense in Downieville. And Bill builds another house for Annie. I don't have a picture of that house. But Bill is trying cases in Nevada, and he's also crossing over the Sierras and handling legal businesses for people there that are setting up mining industries. Annie is extremely proud of her years in Downieville because she earns her first monies. She starts a school in her home. And their second daughter is born, Anne, in 1859. I'm going to stop here a little bit because everywhere Annie and Bill go, they make lifelong friends, people that will pop up in their life, and they write letters to them. They visit one another. In Downieville, Anne and Bill make friends with Dr. Edmund Bryant and his young wife. Her name is really quite long. I couldn't add it all here. Marie Louise Antoinette Hungerford Bryant. She goes by Louise. Louise is going to have a Cinderella life, not with Dr. Bryant. Dr. Bryant and she get married. They have a little girl. They're going to follow the Stewarts over the Sierras. So Annie and Bill are going to stay in contact with them. In Virginia City, Louise is going to lose her second daughter very young after birth, and they both go into despair. Dr. Bryant never makes the money that he was hoping to do. He never finds his bonanza. He turns to drugs and drink and dies a very young death. Louise will go on to marry John Mackey, one of the wealthiest men of the Comstock. She's going to live a wonderful life in San Francisco, New York, and Europe and London. But this is another thing about history. You think you know something, and then you read something else, and it opens up a whole new avenue to explore. I read in the Nevada Historical Society, there's a clipping files, and somebody did an oral history of an old timer living in Virginia City that remembers Louise from those days. And she had read in a book that Louise had to take in miners' laundry, which was a totally fine thing for Louise to do to make sure that herself and her one living child were fed after her husband died. But this old timer said, no way did Louise ever do any laundry for a miner. So I need to investigate that some more. But Louise is somebody I hope one of you starts researching and I can listen to a talk on her wonderful life. In 1860, Bill and Annie, each with a child in their arms, get on mules and ride to Carson City. Bill has built Annie a new home in Carson City, but it's not ready. And Annie and her family live in a tent. Once again, Annie makes the best of wherever she is. She writes to her family that they should all try living in a tent. It's a great experience. That her decision to marry Bill was the best decision she ever made. I took this picture too, and you can walk around it if you ever visit Virginia City. It's located at 108 North Minnesota. It's not Virginia City, it's in Carson City, sorry. It becomes the governor's mansion of the Nevada Territory when Bill and Annie sell it to Governor James Nye. So guess what? Bill is already building Annie a new home, but this time in Virginia City. It's called the Mansion in Virginia City. I don't have a picture to show you. But if you ever want to see pieces of their mansion that was at the top of Taylor Street and Stewart Street at the base of Mount Davidson, go to Piper's Opera House, and anything that looks like it was fine wood, it probably came from the Stewart Mansion. Bill has been very involved with helping Nevada become a state. He's a delegate to, he's been working on committees, deciding where the counties are in Nevada, where the county seats should be. He's been helping write the Nevada Constitution. He won't let it pass until it reads the way he wants it to read. He is a rising star in Nevada. And when it becomes a state in 1864, he is elected one of their first senator of Nevada. He is going to be one of the richest senators that is in Washington at the time. I'd love to take up or meet somebody that knows how to analyze handwriting. I'd love to know what William Stewart's handwriting tells about him. Annie and Bill are now in Washington, D.C. New picture of Bill. He's 6'4". His hair is light red. He's been making money, so no longer is he skinny, but he's not fat. He's just a powerful man. And he stands above most people at the time. His first time at the Senate, the gallery is filled mostly with women, all wanting to see the handsome senator from Nevada, from the Wild West state of Nevada. We all know about the sadness of Lincoln's shooting. But in my research, I found two things that were interesting that I never knew about. In Washington, flags were flying everywhere. It was the end of the Civil War. The flags that were out for sale were the 36-star flag of Nevada. It would become the official flag of the country on July 4th, 1865, but they had already started to produce the flags. The owner of Ford's Theater goes out and buys lots of flags to decorate Ford's Theater on April 14th because Lincoln and Mary and General Grant and his wife are going to be in attendance. In reality, another couple go with Lincoln and Mary because General Grant and his wife want to get home to their family in New Jersey. But so Ford's Theater is decorated with 36-star flags. A 36-star flag will be folded and Lincoln's head will rest on a 36-star flag as his funeral train makes it all the way to Springfield, Illinois. We already talked about Bill introducing the national mining law. There are many people that think that Bill is a villain for even introducing this bill in 1866, and others think he's a hero for writing such a good bill that helps the mining industry. The 15th Amendment is passed, and Nevada is the first state to ratify it. I listened to a YouTube talk by a well-known professor at a very reputable college. And this professor was surprised that Nevada was the first state that ratified the 15th Amendment. So he obviously didn't know that the man that authored it was the senator from Nevada, and he didn't know that Bill Stewart expected nothing else from his state. They had to be the first state to ratify it. Another thing, though, that I learned from this professor was that the state of Tennessee did not ratify the 15th Amendment until and I have the numbers right, 1997. That's something else I'm going to start researching. The last bullet is Annie and their two daughters are in Europe for the 6 years. Annie has already lived in Washington, D.C. She knows what the loneliness that her mother has gone through. And Bill and Annie agree that they want their daughters to be well educated. Bill really appreciates Annie's intellect. He also knows that Annie's having a hard time dealing with the Reconstruction period after the war. She's a Southern belle. Her family fought in the Confederacy. And she's not always going to agree on what Bill knows he needs to do. So it's best that Annie not be around to torment him. A better reason would be that Annie's father, Henry Foote, at the beginning of the Civil War, leaves San Francisco and goes to live with family in Tennessee, and he joins the Confederacy. At the end of the war, he is put in prison. Henry Foote is in prison. Bill, through his contacts, gets him a passport and basically helps him escape to Europe. And Annie's father is living in Europe. Annie's mother died the year that she and Bill were married in 1855. And she's very close to her father. She wants to make sure he's okay. Bill's living, notice there's no house at this point, new house for them. It's coming, believe me. But so Bill is living in a boarding house, very close to where all of his committees meet. Throughout Bill's career in Washington, he's always going to give credit to the committees for the bills that he authors. But from his writings, it's very clear that the ideas were him. He just had a way of making other people feel that they had the idea too, and Bill just gave them the right wording for it. Bill is in his boarding house and there's a knock on the door. He opens it and this man that obviously has been sleeping in his clothes for a long time, he's nut brown, and he says he'd like to have a job. We'll just call Sam Clemens Mark Twain at this point. Mark Twain and the Stewarts have a tentative relationship. Mark Twain really, he's a satirist. He poked fun at Bill and the delegates. He called Bill a pirate. He called him a captain of a sinking ship that was made out of patch quilts. And Bill and Mark Twain's defense said that he wasn't far wrong at times. When he, and then Mark Twain starts picking on Annie and her friends. And Annie and Bill and so many people in Virginia City have family in San Francisco in the Bay Area. And the newspapers in those communities are picking up Mark Twain's articles. They're very amusing. I'm only going to read the bottom part. Bill sees him and later on he writes, I suppose he was the most lovable scamp and nuisance who ever blighted Nevada. And I warned him, if you put anything in the paper about me, I'll sue you for libel. He gives Mark Twain a job as his secretary. Mark Twain continues his antics. He drives Bill's landlady, which is a lovely lady from the South that's just, that's created a wonderful boarding house for politicians. And she cannot tolerate Mark Twain's antics anymore. And Bill, rather than move, fires Mark Twain. There could be a talk just on Mark Twain and the havoc he causes in Washington. Mark Twain, to his credit, will always thank Bill Stewart in public for giving him the chance to become a legitimate author. Because while he's in Bill's employment, he finishes his book called Innocents Abroad. Let's look at the Stewart. There are some people out there listening to this talk who are saying she's never told you the most interesting thing about this man. So let me say it now. Bill Stewart will make and lose 3 fortunes in his lifetime. So let's look at how it plays out here in his Senate terms. He's 2 terms, first and second term. In 1873, during his second term, he is building a grand home in Washington, D.C. He needs money for this beautiful home. He's going to leave Washington, D.C. for 12 years, and he's going to make his second fortune. And he needs to come back because there are other bills he needs to make sure that happen for his state and for the Western states. So he leaves Washington for 12 years to make another fortune, and there's still another fortune to win. So this is a picture of Bill and Annie in Washington. Annie comes back from Europe around 1870. They're planning their new house together. If you lived in the times and you lived in Washington, D.C., you wanted to be a guest at any of the parties that they threw. They were wonderful hosts and hostesses. Look at, this is what they did in Washington, D.C. They're going to build Stewart's Castle. It's also called, at the time, Stewart's Folly. It's 19,000 square foot. I don't have a picture to show you, but I hope you go on the internet and search. And you look at this beautiful 5-story home. That's why Bill needs to earn some money. Their third daughter is going to be born. They're going to call her Maybelle. She's born in 1873. Annie goes to California to be with one of her sisters when her daughter is born, and then returns to make sure that the house is ready for the family coming back to Washington. Bill is investing in the Chevy Chase development, which is a very exclusive development in Maryland. And Francis Newland from Nevada is one of his partners in the Chevy Chase development. He's also investing in streetcar lines. And I have a little asterisk there to remind me to tell you something later about streetcars in Washington, D.C. He's also making sure Carson City gets the money that was promised them for the U.S. Mint. And he's helping the college that was started in Elko to move to Nevada. Since he came to Nevada in 1860, he has been working with many others to increase the boundaries of Nevada. Nevada's boundaries have already increased. They've taken 2 pieces from the Utah Territory. Well, all of Nevada was Utah Territory. So 2 more pieces have come from Utah Territory. A piece has come from Arizona Territory, and Bill is going after more from Utah and Idaho. And Bill is given the title of the father of the irrigation movement. He knows for the Western states that water is going to be the big issue, always for them. Water is going to bring people into the state, and right now, Nevada needs more people. Bill needs to have a residence in Nevada if he expects to be elected their senator. So this is the 3rd home they built in Carson City. 503 Robinson Street. It's a beautiful house still. At one time, Bill and Annie owned the whole block. There were chickens and small farm animals and fruit trees. Bill had water tanks brought in to make sure that everything grew really well. It's a beautiful house, and this is where Annie and Bill and their friends will celebrate his 5th U.S. win. This is a sad time for Bill and Annie. Anne Elizabeth Foote Stewart, Annie, on September 12th, 1902, dies in what the papers say is the first automobile accident in Northern California. The car, Winton, which is a very good car, was a very good car starting in 1901, is owned by one of her nephews. Annie has just come back from Palo Alto. She's taken one of her grandchildren to start his first year at Stanford. And she stopped to visit with Hannah Clapp, who was the contractor for the wrought iron gate around Carson City, Nevada's state capitol building. 2 of her nephews are in the car with her. They are all thrown from the car, but Annie's injuries are fatal. Bill gets the news by telegraph. One of Annie's brothers sends the telegraph. He is in the Netherlands at The Hague trying the first international case in that famous court. Bill's team is representing the Catholic Church of California versus Mexico. They win the case, but it's a bittersweet win for Bill. He really misses Annie. Every day they were away, they wrote. The reason she's on her nephew is taking her, driving her to Alameda, is that she wants to go to her granddaughter's house and get a letter from Bill. Bill still has 2.5 years left of his 5th term. Bill is extremely lonely. He marries in 1903 for the 2nd time. He marries a friend of the family, May Agnes. She is 30 years his junior. Her daughter was named for Annie. Bill will adopt Vera Anna. Bill is lonely. And May Agnes and Annie are really good friends and have been writing to each other. They both miss Annie. Bill decides to move his new family to back to Nevada because, he needs to find another fortune. So they move to Bullfrog, Nevada, and yes, he builds his family a new home. Oh, this is the picture I need to tell you about. Do you see this hat that this man is wearing? Do you see the white beard and the black coat? This is what he wore most of the times in Washington, D.C. If you go in on the internet, on your favorite Google site, and type in 1890 streetcars in Washington, D.C., don't worry about the periods, you're going to see a picture of a streetcar with a man with this hat, this white hat, and a white beard and a black cloak. I can't prove it, but I think that is Bill Stewart or a Bill Stewart look-alike. And remember, he's invested in streetcars. If he's put money into it, he's out trying what he invested. This is what something keeps on popping on my screen, so I don't know what that's about. I hope it's not annoying you. This is what they write about him in Bullfrog. I'm only going to read the bottom one. You go ahead and read the rest. William Morris Stewart stated that he wanted to spend his remaining days with the boys and that it was better to wear out than to rust out. That's Bill leaving life. Dr. Jeanne Wier, if she wouldn't have brought that sign to the Nevada Historical Society, if I wouldn't be able to look through some of Bill Stewart's letters and all the treasures that came with those 500 volumes from the Stewart home in Bullfrog, office in Bullfrog. Jeanne Wier is honored by UNR in 1925 with a doctorate for her 25 years of service as teaching of history and poli-sci at the university, and for collecting the treasures of Nevada and the West. She's buried in Mountain View Cemetery, and I hope someday you'll take her a bouquet of flowers and thank her for starting the Nevada Historical Society in 1904 and saving the state's treasures. These are all the people, most of the books that I've read, the clipping files at the Nevada Historical Society are a treasure. People gave me books, people gave me advice, and I thank them all. Thank you for listening to the William Morris Stewart story. Linda, I didn't even see your picture there. How long have you been waiting for me to stop? I do get carried away. Oh my gosh. You don't know how many slides I eliminated from this talk. I really, really worked at it. Hi.
Lorraine, we have lots of questions, so.
Oh no, okay. Okay, here, questions and answers.
Okay, first of all, from Judith, she wants to know, how did Bill make his fortune initially from gold? Was it from gold, or how did he make it originally?
It's from his law business. He was, everybody wanted to hire Bill. Once he put on an act every time he tried a trial. The lawyers against him never knew what Bill Stewart was going to do. He was known as the foremost lawyer of his time. And so everybody wanted to hire him, and he kept on raising his prices. He made his money by being a lawyer.
Okay, thank
And
you.
he did invest in mines. He invested in a lot of new discoveries.
Okay.
Thanks, Judith.
Judith would also like to know, do you know the names of the towns where Bill lived in upstate New York or Ohio when he was growing up?
He was born in Galen, New York, in that area, Galen, New York. It's a farming area. It's by Syracuse, below Syracuse in that area. That's Judith at this point is sort of gone out of my mind. But in Ohio, he lived in Wayne County. And that's in the middle lower part of the state, Wayne County. But he always thought of Lyons, New York, and Galen as being really home base for him. He went back to teach school in New York State.
Really? And Lorraine, how did William Morris Stewart pass the bar in just 2 years?
Oh my gosh. Well, it was different in those days. I love this about Nevada. When I first came here 12, 13 years ago, I heard this saying that if you, once you passed Windover, you could become anyone you wanted to be in the West. But as a lawyer, it was like the old mentoring system. You would find somebody that said they were a lawyer, you would read with them, you would ask questions of them. It was the hours you put into studying, and then one or two other people that said they were lawyers would give you an oral test, and magically you were a lawyer. There's records that people decided, a mining man, a mountaineer guy, Joe Meeks, decided he'd always wanted to become a doctor. So when he retired to California, he became a doctor. And it's written that he did no harm. So I think that's really nice. John Marsh in Sacramento area, he had a degree for a teacher. It was Latin words on a piece of paper. A lot of people didn't read really well, and surely not Latin. And he was a doctor charging lots of money in the Sacramento area. I think that's interesting about the West. Become whoever you wanted to be. I would change my name to Penelope or something, Phoebe or Penelope.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorraine. And people have said thank you very much. Fabulous topic. And we want to thank people for tuning in today. And don't forget to visit the Nevada Historical Society. It's open on Wednesdays during the pandemic. Also Thursdays and Fridays by appointment only. Check the website for the hours and conditions. And also don't forget that we are collecting COVID stories and experiences during this time. If you wish to mail them in, email them in to to our director, Catherine McGee, or to the Society. We are collecting those, just as Jeanne Wier collected reminiscences in her day. We would like to collect those stories today as well. So thank you again, Lorraine, and thank you again, Judy and John and the library. And don't forget, you can find these talks online as well at the Washoe Library Systems website. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to chime in. This is Judy with Washoe County Library System, and I wanted to thank all of you for joining us today. And I also wanted to give another big thank you to Lorraine Petersen for that amazing presentation. It was so interesting. And Carol Coman, and also Linda Burke with the Nevada Historical Society for making this event possible today. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a good day.